Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jake Everett. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I had some hardware issues, Jake, so I thought it was the mic, so I bought a new mic and it still didn't work. Then I thought it was the cable, so I bought a new cable and it still didn't work. And now I'm on my headphones and I was really worried about the quality of the episodes. And I rang my operations manager and she was like, "Oh no, we've got AI in Zencaster now, and the AI enhancement can make you sound like you haven't got a microphone, but you've got a microphone even when you haven't." I was like, "Wow, okay, so there's some pretty cool use cases on the podcast scene as well, mate."
Yeah, AI and everything now. I don't think there's nowhere that it hasn't reached yet.
I think it's true. I think it has been in pictures and videos on phones for a while, because when I'm looking at different videos and stuff, they're looking like we're all looking younger than ever, some of these videos, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a surprise when you accidentally turn that off and all of a sudden you realize what you look like in your pictures.
Yeah, exactly, mate. But no, Jack, I'm looking forward to that, mate. You've got a Vice President of Offensive Security. I look at that job title and I'm like, yeah, I bet he has some fun. That's a very cool job and very desirable job. Yeah, it'd be nice to get into your journey, mate. I'm just going to do you a bit of an intro for the listeners that don't know you. If I get anything wrong, feel free to correct me and shout at me or both, my friend. But started off in the Marine Corps and infantry squad leader. It'd be nice to learn more about that and you transition into the commercial world. Then had various different roles as you came in, an IT specialist, then corporate services. That was an internship. And then you've shot into where you are now, which is Rule4, and progressed very nicely up to VP level. And I've been doing that role for over 3 years now. So a somewhat traditional background with the Marine Corps, but also somewhat unorthodox there. So it'd be nice to unpack that. I'm sure there's a few stories, but welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it and glad to be here.
Yeah, cool, mate. So I know I've done you a bit of an intro, but I always like to start with what's a day in the life like for Jake now? What you get up to and what goes down day to day, mate, as VP of Offensive Security?
Yeah, sure. Every day really is different. I guess broadly speaking, I can describe it as some number of vulnerability scans or penetration tests. Every day is going to be that, but as far as what I'm testing or what kind of apps, or I do hardware testing and just everything, mobile testing, API, apps, networks, anything. If you can break into it, I will try to do it.
Yeah, cool, mate. Cool. No, wicked, mate. And I know you're working 4 days a week as well, which I just think is so cool. I've tried to do that myself, but in recruitment, I think we were talking about it last time, it just doesn't really work in recruitment because all your final interviews of your candidates that you're representing, typically they tend to be on a Friday. So
yeah,
taking a Friday off doesn't really work. But yeah, it sounds like you've got it sorted, mate. I like it.
Yeah, we used to have a schedule called 9/9s, which was 9 days of working. So Monday through Friday, and then Monday through Thursday, and you get every other Friday off.
Okay.
We used to do that, but it was trouble because every other Friday, some of the people would be in the office because we would work on an alternate schedule. So half the office would be in on one Friday and then half the office would be in on the next Friday. And it was just somebody would be working on a project together and the other person wouldn't be in the office. So eventually we just decided, why don't we go to a full 4-day week? And it's been great. I love it. Obviously, if somebody emails me or needs some help on a Friday, I'm happy to help out. But usually I do very little work on Friday. I usually use that for studying, actually, or for things like this.
Yeah, no, brilliant, mate. Yeah, no, really cool. And straight away, my brain just goes into recruitment mode and I'm like, what a fantastic talent attraction tool and what a hell of a retention tool as well. And I know when we were speaking before, Jake, you were like, yeah, it is 4 days a week, but make no mistake about it, you do crack on and you're really getting stuff done in that Monday to Thursday. And I think sometimes there's a big thing of you don't want the Thursday to turn into the Friday kind of chill off. It needs to be if you're working 4 days, you've got to be on it, haven't you?
Yeah, I get in at about 6:45 so I can be ready to get rolling at 7. And then 7 to 5, I'm doing mostly billable work. So we track billable time. And I try to aim for 85% of my time being billable work because that's how we get to have the perks like a 4-day work week.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, man. I really like the fact that you do research and development on a Friday as well because I went through a bit of a phase of reading about how we absorb information and the mind and the subconscious mind and stuff like that. And long story short, when you're in more of a relaxed state, that is the best state to absorb new information in. So I'm imagining if you're getting up on a Friday and you're not officially working, like you say, you're checking your phone and checking emails, but I'm imagining that's a pretty cool state to be doing your kind of self-development stuff as well. I bet that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's working out pretty great. I wake up early and I'll start. So today, for instance, before I joined here, I was reading about this new supply chain attack. There's a new, I don't know if you've heard about it, but a new worm that has been affecting NPM packages. And anyway, I was just reading about that. Usually on a Friday, I'll read some cybersecurity news and then get into, I'm studying for my OSCP right now because I don't have that yet.
It's lab time, can't you, beforehand? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't have that right now. I've done one attempt on the OSCP and I didn't pass that time. But yeah, not sure of my hours, but I do actually, I have a ticket that I'm tracking it at. I'm somewhere around 300 hours of studying right now.
Okay.
But
cool. Do you know what it is though, Jake? With OSCP, I honestly, the more people I talk to that have either passed or not passed, I genuinely believe a massive part of it is just what boxes come out on the day. Because I know people like they've passed, without sounding harsh, I've gone, kind of surprised that candidate's passed because I didn't think they were that. And then guys that I know that are phenomenal, I've seen not pass. I think a lot of it is what boxes come out on the day.
Yeah, they keep it a little secret as far as like how many boxes they have to rotate through and stuff like that. But I thought that as soon as I failed the first time, I was like, man, if I could have gotten a SQL injection one or something, because it just took me, I got my first box and then the second one I had started to figure it out and I knew where the foothold was, but I just couldn't get past that. And I was like, man, if that was something that I had happened to study more for, I might have been okay. But yeah, it's a little bit of a luck of the draw, but you really just got to have that broad. Well, you either got to get really lucky or you got to have that broad.
Well, I tell you what I've seen as well. Like I've seen guys that are working on really advanced stuff, and I've seen this in hiring processes as well, where they're working on really advanced stuff. I've seen it lately on the NetPen side and they've got to do like a practical NetPen, and it's nothing crazy, like discovering some hosts, no evasion required. It's not a CTF. It's just showing like principles of OffSec. And I've seen them go wrong on the basics because they haven't had to do anything really basic for a while. They've been really deep in some really like stuff that's just like layer upon layer of complexity, and the basic stuff catches people.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about cybersecurity and pen testing in general is that it's always like you can go extremely deep in one area and become an expert. James Kettle is the director of research at Portswigger. He's excellent at finding these crazy new vulnerabilities and writing up those papers. There's guys that are experts in hardware security, and it's just, there's a lot of areas that you can really dig down deep in. And currently, I think in my career, I haven't really focused on one thing yet, but I've got a broad base of a shallow knowledge on a lot of things. But yeah, we'll see what I eventually dig down into and become an expert in.
Yeah, cool. I think just going back to, you're talking about that supply chain attack. I do think reverse engineering real life attack is very stimulating and it's a lot of fun and it's very insightful and interesting, but I also think it's one of the best ways to progress.
Yeah. Really, and I love reading about the research. It's always extremely interesting to see how real attacks are happening.
Yeah, cool. So you're preparing for your OSCP, that's part of your self-development. You're also reverse engineering attack pass, that's part of your self-development program. Is there anything else that you're doing that's making you a better offensive security professional that could help other people listening?
I'm learning lockpicking right now. I've got a bunch of locks sitting over to the side here. We don't do a ton of physical pen tests. We've done a few in the past, but I want to be prepared for that. And also, it's just fun to be able to pick locks.
I
quickly found that the master locks I started about a week ago learning, and I can pick every master lock so far. So don't use those.
You know what I found over the years? Like we recruited so many folks on the offensive security side. And I find with the physical stuff, like the guys and girls either love it or hate it. Some people absolutely love it. And the people that have done a lot of it as well, there's always a story. There's always like a crazy, wild story where they were in the wrong place at the wrong time and got caught out. And yeah, I'm sure you've heard some funny ones, but I've heard some really funny ones.
Yeah, I watch a lot of, there's a YouTuber and member of the community, Deviant Olem, and he puts out a lot of videos about physical security and crazy stuff like using vape. Like he'll hit a vape and then blow that into a visual detector on the other side of a door, and that'll trigger the thing and open and stuff like that. It's crazy. A lot of those guys have cool stories.
Yeah, no, they're cool. See, when you transitioned out of the Marine Corps, Joe, what do you know now that perhaps you wish you knew back then? There'll be people listening now when we release this that are going through that right now, or maybe they're due to go through that in the not too distant future. What do you know now about coming out into the commercial world that you wish you knew back then?
I had a non-standard path, I guess, to tech. I came into the Marine Corps, and then it took me a while before I settled on tech. I went to school for 2 years for English first, and then dropped out, went to work, did some military contracting. And it took me a good probably 10 years before I started going to school for tech. I got an associate's degree in software development, and then eventually went for my bachelor's in IT. And I think the biggest thing that would have helped me is as soon as I knew I was interested in security, which has been a very long time, I should have started just trying practical application with websites like Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. And there's tons of other websites. Those are just the most well known. But I think there was some degree to which I was like, I haven't had schooling in this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how to start. And just jumping in and really just seeing what you can figure out. That's one of the most beneficial things. And I think if I had started doing that a lot earlier, I would be a lot further along right now.
Cool. I think it's one of the, I remember seeing some stats on this once, and most people learn in the most effective way by what you've described, which is doing it, and then it just sticks. I know you mentioned Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, and also you mentioned Portswigger. Have you been on Portswigger Web Academy? Because that's a good one as well.
Yes, that's, in my opinion, the best free resource that is out there. Anytime James Kittle comes out with new research, they usually release a new Academy page to describe in a little more simpler terms what he'd written about in his white paper. They have that for his latest request smuggling. They already have a labs for that and everything that'll tell you how everything works, and you can practice it yourself.
Yeah, I used to always post about, I don't know if you're familiar with hack tricks.
I have. So there's, like I said, there's so many things with cybersecurity that you need to learn or you might come up against that you don't have any information about. And sites like Hack Tricks, and there's tons of other ones. Basically, there's just a wiki of some person or group of people. Hey, this is what I do when I find an unsecured SMB service or something like that. And it's just a good list of, hey, first try this, then try this. And then if none of this works, maybe read this article. It's just a lot of good resources of what to do for specific services. Super helpful.
Definitely. Because when you think about it, like we probably all take that for granted to a certain extent, because it's like you said, if you absolutely went to town on Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, Portswigger Web Academy for either totally free or not a lot of money at all, you could form a priceless skill set just without leaving the house.
Yeah, it's so much information. I don't know if I'll ever get through all of it, but it's, you can just learn constantly. You could be on there 24 hours a day and for years, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. You mentioned you studied English for a while. Has that helped as you've come more into the commercial world with perhaps dealing with end clients and report writing and exec summaries and things like that? Has that been pretty advantageous?
Yeah, especially Rule4. We write a ton of reports, and I think we pride ourselves on the quality of our reports also. The ability to write well and be able to explain complicated subjects at whatever level I need to, whether it's to a developer or a CFO or whoever, that's extremely helpful, and also helps our QA team with not having to correct a ton of my grammar, a little bit, but...
Yeah, no, I did a YouTube show about it this week. I used to try and attempt to be really technical on this pod when I first started. And then I was like, no, people can get that information from all the places that we've just been talking about. But I think that communication piece and getting that, if you get the technical piece and the communication piece sorted, like I think in terms of that plus some consistency, I think the career progression and the success within security or offensive, whichever part of security you're in, I think is ultimately inevitable. If you can combine those two things, communication and technical, you become dangerous in a good way, mate, don't you?
Yeah, both of those are extremely important to us at Rule4. And when we're looking through candidates that are coming in, we're looking for, if you've got a couple minor errors on your resume, that's a pretty quick way for us to say, they didn't get the resume right. What's it going to look like when they're actually doing an important report for a client? Yeah, that's very important, and it's a very useful skill to have.
Cool, yeah. It'd be nice to call in a minute, Jake, some tips for more, if you've got any other insights on communication, or if you've got any other insights on dealing with really important clients for the listeners. You just mentioned something there, which I'll come to first, which is when people are applying, obviously errors in the resume is a big one. Is there any other do's and don'ts, or is there anything really good that someone's done that you've maybe hired fairly recently, or is there any other kind of good and bad things on both sides that could help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that one of the most important things is just honesty in every aspect of any question you get asked. Just be 100% honest. I much prefer to hear somebody say, I don't know what that word you just said to me even means, but I'm happy to go look it up and come back to you and figure it out. That kind of intellectual honesty is a lot more important to us than knowing everything. We've had people that we've hired before that have come in and what they know, and they admit to not knowing what they don't know. Versus I've had other candidates that have come in and try to kind of BS their way through something that they don't know what they're talking about. And it becomes really apparent. And if you do that to a client, even if they don't know necessarily what you're talking about, they'll probably be able to smell out that you're not being entirely honest, or you're trying to avoid saying that you don't know something. And it's just not a great look.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially if you're dealing with people in really senior or C-suite and stuff like that, yeah, they're very used to dealing with people. They've probably been around the block maybe more than once or twice. They're going to spot that. Another thing that I've heard, so previous podcast guests that are like in positions like you, Jake, or business owners, and some of my clients do it as well, where they sometimes ask a question on purpose that would be literally impossible to be able to answer on the spot, just to actually see if people have got the confidence to go, listen, I'm not sure, do you mind if I Google it? Or I'm not sure, do you mind if I come back to you tomorrow or something like that?
That's a great idea. We don't do that, but I know Google and other companies like that have notoriously difficult interviews with crazy questions. Estimate the number of people in America that are missing a tooth or just random crazy things like that. I think there are ways of figuring out what your problem solving ability is, as well as figuring out if you'll just make something up without having any information. Yeah, that's a good tool.
Yeah, definitely. And for everyone listening, I really think that is important. I know from myself from running a business, building these client relationships, like especially really good ones that are really valuable and mutually beneficial. Sometimes that can take years, like literally years and years of relationship building, essentially, to get there. I think every business leader and business owner has got every right to be protective over that for obvious reasons.
Yeah. I mean, that relationship's really important. It's because once trust is lost, and in cybersecurity, you need so much trust to let somebody into your environment, to follow their recommendations, all of that. It's extremely important.
Yeah, it is. When the trust is there, it just makes life easier on both sides. Like I've seen it before over the years as a recruiter, and I suppose every industry is good and bad, but in recruitment, sometimes like when people first meet you, if they don't know you, there's not a huge amount of trust there. But then when you build that trust over time, it just gets so much easier, not just for the client, but it gets easier for me as a recruiter as well, because things become much more streamlined and different parts of the process can be left out because the levels of trust are high. So then to reverse all that, and let's say it'd be the same with what you're doing, Jake. If the trust is there, it's just nicer for everyone, I think.
And if somebody trusts you, they'll tell their friends like, hey, they know what they're doing. Go to them for your pen test, cybersecurity effectiveness study, whatever things you need done, they can do it, and they're highly trustworthy. So a lot of our work, almost, I would say at least 70% of our work probably comes from word of mouth. That's a huge part of our business.
Yeah, no, that's really good, mate. Really good. It's a bit cliche, but it's the best form of advertising. I think as time goes on as well, and like the online space just gets like busier and noisier, and so many companies are saying similar sort of things. I think the word of mouth has been powerful, but I think it's probably going to get more powerful as time goes on.
Yeah, I worked for Yellow Pages actually for a little bit and doing selling advertising, which was a terrible job, but I remember I would talk to these business owners, and a lot of them would be like, we get most of our stuff through word of mouth. And I'm like, really? Are you sure you don't want to pay me for, an ad in the Yellow Pages? You're getting all this business from word of mouth. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Cool. So on the communication piece, Jake, is there anything, let's say, if you're dealing with end clients and stuff, is there anything you know now, or is there any other tips you could give for people in terms of enhancing those communication skills when you're working on an advisory basis?
I think, like I said, honesty is the most important thing, being able to say what you know and what you don't know. But yeah, that's the main thing, being honest, and also responsiveness, I would say. We try to respond in minutes rather than hours. It's amazing what that'll do for a relationship when, for instance, I was working with a client and they were working with a detection and response company, basically. And this company took 3 weeks or something to respond to one of their emails, and we were responding 3-4 times a day to this email thread. It took this company just weeks and weeks to get back to them.
Wow.
And it was just like they lost their business just based on that. You could see in real time the loss of trust and loss of faith in their ability to do what they were being paid to do, just solely based on the lack of response.
Yeah, were they quite a large company by any chance?
It was BlackBerry Cylance, which I believe was bought by Arctic Wolf, which is why I thought that. It was just very crazy. But I'm sure they're probably gotten better now that they've gotten bought out. But
Yeah, I think that as well, though. What I was going to say is I've noticed it as a smaller agency, like what was like, we're not the biggest because we're big enough to get stuff done, but we're small enough to actually really still care and get back to people really quick. And probably like music. If I'm not working, and even on a weekend, if someone pings me about something, I'll still respond and I'll still get back to them and this, that, and LinkedIn's on my phone and my email's on my phone and all that. I think as a small company, that really does give you an edge in terms of your levels of service you provide and the relationships you can build as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it's no trouble if somebody sends me a Slack message or shoots an email, it's not hard to spend 5 minutes figuring out what they need. And just at least don't be a blocker for people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think on the communication side as well, one thing, actually, a previous podcast guest said this to me, like maybe like we've done the pod now for just over 2.5 years, and it was one of the early guests, and they were saying when anything is not quite going to plan, just make sure at that point you are extra responsive, and if anything, slightly over communicate. And that always really stuck with me because this particular guest was saying in that scenario, when stuff is going wrong, so many people will shy away, try and sweep it under the carpet, try and avoid that client. Whereas if you go completely facing it head on, like the respect you gain, and again, the relationship that you build off the back of that is just so good. And that's something I've implemented a few times over the years when stuff hasn't gone to plan, and it works really nicely. It's really appreciated.
Yeah. And especially if you're doing that all the time, if you're just very responsive and you're always very honest, your clients will give you a little more grace when things aren't going well. And if something happens and it takes you a day to respond, and then you get right back to them and you say, hey, I'm so sorry, something came up. They know that you're not just making something up because you don't want to talk to them. They know that, they're always very responsive and honest.
Yeah,
and sure this is true.
That's it. It goes back to just good communication. Within reason, if I was dealing with a supplier, if they were communicative and they were like being, like to your point, honest with me, within reason, I'd probably be okay about it, even if they weren't delivering at that particular moment in time. I think if they were ignoring me, I'd probably get really frustrated really quickly, and probably let them know about it. But again, if they're being open and they're coming to the phone and they're bouncing emails back to me, I think I would certainly give them leeway, 100%.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. There's almost nothing you can do to gain trust or lose trust faster than either just not responding to people or, on the other side, being super responsive and honest.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. Yeah. Cool. All right, Jake. You've gone from like your IT and at Rule4 now, and you've progressed up to VP. Is there anything that you think you did that maybe other people haven't done, or other people listening maybe haven't done, that's allowed you to get that level of progression, to get to VP level? And anything that you think other people could learn to help them progress like that?
I'll say that Rule4 is a pretty unique situation just because it's a very small startup. We've got about 15 employees total. 11 or 12 of us, I think, are engineers, and the rest is our QA team. And we also have a project manager. So I guess one of the things would be working hard, but also working at a very small company. That helped me out a lot. But yeah, just don't take not knowing for an answer. If you don't know something, figure it out. Go read about it, find resources to learn about it, practice whatever it is, focus on your weak spots, and just always try to improve.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what it is? Like, I think as well, you know what it is, Jake, these days, like living in the age of the internet and like some of the resources we've mentioned today, like if people really are on it and they're focused and they're passionate about it, like the information's there. And some of that stuff you said, I'm like, yeah, but not everyone does do that. Like I can remember earlier on this year, we had like a constant demand across a few different companies for GRC analysts. So I was like going out to my network to speak to what people I knew that were good, but also we were going out to market proactively. And I was stunned at how many people were GRC experts, but like the minute you dived into kind of some SOC 1 or SOC 2 stuff or some NIST 853 stuff, or if they're doing some CLMC or some NIST 800-17, it was stunning to me how the minute you dug, like people just hadn't bothered to leave no stone unturned or even bother to dig semi-deep. And it's like all the informations that even me as a recruiter, I can find all this stuff out. I'm not doing the job, but you can get your knowledge base pretty good pretty quick these days.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this, but we've noticed that it's not a constant thing, but a lot of the resumes were like, did an AI agent write this resume? And is all of this stuff true? Because we'll ask people like, hey, I'll read the resume and I ask questions directly. If it's on your resume, I expect you to be able to talk about it competently. And a lot of times it's just, I've used that once. You probably shouldn't have put it on your resume then, because now I'm asking you questions about it. You don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I don't know if people are having AIs write their resumes or if it's people just fluffing their resume up or what, but
yeah. No, they are, mate. They 100% are. I've had companies that I used to check in with or still do check in with all the time, and they've kind of said, I'll never pay a recruiter's fee. And then they get 30 resumes that look phenomenal on paper. They're a business founder trying to do 1,000,001 jobs, and they're also trying to recruit themselves. And they do 30 interviews of people that look great on paper, and they do 30 terrible interviews. And they've, like, off the back of AI, they've now actually maybe it would be better to just use a recruiter. But yeah, I think AI sometimes make it worse. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again, which is I spoke to one internal recruiter, and she had 2 resumes identical from 2 different people in totally different parts of the US. They'd obviously both put the same prompt into Claude or into ChatGPT. But yeah, what you just said there as well about if it's on the resume, every hiring manager I know, technical hiring manager I know, says what you've just said. If it's on the resume, I fully expect you to be able to hold a conversation about it and really. If the answer is, oh yeah, I did it once, that's just, like you said, it shouldn't be on there. And then going back to your trust thing, the trust's kind of pretty much gone. It's certainly eroded at that point, and if not gone.
Yeah. Very interesting. We've had some people admit that they use AI, which I use AI all the time. But I think if you're using it to make stuff up, it's probably not the best use of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think sometimes job seekers on the market might get confused and think, like me as a recruiter, if I'm screening candidates on behalf of my clients, I really don't mind if people use it. In fact, I would see that as a positive if they are using AI. If they were completely against AI, saying I never want to use it, that would be a red flag in itself for me. So if you're using AI to do stuff, like you say, it has to be the truth, pretty important, and it needs to have been checked, and you need to have read it back, and you probably need to have tailored it and put your own spin on it. Maybe you've used AI initially to build out the framework, and then you've gone and really tailored it to you and put your touch on it and made it real and authentic. I think that's absolutely fine. But yeah, if you're just banging resumes out from AI, not checking them, none of it's true, then that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, we had a candidate who their first language wasn't English. They were English as a second language. And they used it, so they wrote their cover letter, and then they had the AI kind of check grammar and make it a little more technically correct and everything. And that's a great use. That's perfect. Write something, have AI go through it, read that back, and make sure it says what you wanted to say.
Yeah, and it definitely, just like you say, it probably goes back to most things in life. It's about balance and just using it probably. As a hiring manager, what's your thoughts on cover notes? Do you like that, or do you not like that, or does it not really affect your decision?
We do like it.
Okay.
It's not a mandatory thing for sure. If you have a special story to tell and you want us to know more than the story that's told by your resume, then definitely. I don't think I sent cover letter in when I got hired, but I would say that most people do include a cover letter.
Cool, mate. So I used to ask which book has had the most positive impact on your career. It can be security related. It doesn't have to be, but it can be book or podcast or anything you've consumed that's made you the best version of you that could help the listeners. Does anything spring to mind, buddy?
I read a lot. Most of them are not cybersecurity related. I think as far as cybersecurity, the things that have improved my career the most are YouTube videos. Just whether that's, I started out with kind of Network Chuck a long time ago. He does entry-level tech videos. There's David Bombal. Just Jason Haddix has a lot of good stuff. There's tons of really good YouTubers out there. Another book that I actually read when I started Rule4 was Sandworm, which is about threat actors generally, but mainly the Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure and cybersecurity attacks leading up to the war there and around the world. And that was pretty interesting. Let me know about the nation state attacks and what those look like. But yeah, that was a great book.
Yeah, when you think about it, right, at the minute, like in terms of cyber warfare, it must be like the beefiest it's ever been. There must be stuff we hear about, but I bet there's so much going on. You might know more than me, mate, but I bet there's so much going on.
I just read another book recently, actually, called, it's got a weird title. It was something like, This Is How They Tell Me the World Will End, or something like that. And it's about the 0-day market for governments and whoever wants to buy 0 days. It's a black market. And it's a scary world out there. I really think that cyber warfare is going to be a new frontier and have more and more of an impact as the world goes on. And I worry that someone is in everything, that we're probably in the Chinese infrastructure, we're in the Russians. And I feel like if the wrong thing happens, everybody's going to turn everything off and we'll all be sitting here in the dark.
Yeah, I'll have to find you, Jake, to do a podcast if I can get on a plane.
Yeah.
But yeah, the YouTube one's massive, stupidly overpriced, but I actually pay now the YouTube Premium because it basically means that when my phone's in my pocket and I lock my phone, that YouTube still plays really well. So I actually paid a subscription basically for that reason. But at the same time, I do really value it because, like what you just said, I'll have different podcasts about recruitment on there. I'll have different sometimes security stuff on. Sometimes I'm listening to stuff on politics in the US or the UK. And yeah, it really keeps me up to speed on stuff. As much as I think the subscription's overpriced, I do think from a self-development perspective and keeping up to speed with stuff, it's really efficient because I can be in the gym or I can just be walking down to the shops or something and I've got my AirPods in and I'm good to go.
Yeah, there's literally nothing that I've ever looked on YouTube for and not been able to find that I'm trying to learn. Whether it's fixing my dishwasher or learning how to lock, there's always some highly skilled person make a video about it.
It's like really good, like the suggested stuff's really good. Like you can watch one and find one and then before you know it, you're like, oh, this looks good. And then, but you've watched like 4, 5, 6 videos and you burn through half an afternoon on a Sunday or something. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, their algorithms are pretty good.
Yeah, no, they're really good. Totally off subject, Jake. I quickly tell the British guy and he buys supercars that have basically been written off, like absolutely, totally written off, and he does them up and he gets them back. He's got 6.5 million followers on YouTube. This guy is fascinating if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, no, slightly going off topic, but yeah. And think years ago, like this information, like if I go back a few hundred years to get that level of education, that was saved for the very rich and very privileged people could only get that. And whereas now, just got it on YouTube, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Even 20 or 30 years ago, I came up in the early days of the internet. I think we got a computer when I was probably 12 or 13 back in 98 or something, 97, something like that. And we had the internet, but if I had a question, the internet was not the best place to answer that question. And you just got lucky finding, I found a website that has all this cool information on it. And it wasn't like it is today. The learning ecosystem on the internet is crazy now.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think people should be quite conscious about what they are consuming because I've found if you listen to the wrong stuff from a mindset perspective, you can get quite negative quite quickly. And then on the flip side, if you listen to people with like phenomenal vocabs debating some pretty intelligent stuff, if you listen to that consistently, all of a sudden you literally find your vocab getting better and you can articulate yourself a little bit easier than maybe you could before. And then maybe your writing skills get better as a result. And all this really helps in terms of cybersecurity career progression because these things really matter. So yeah, I think it can really easily go one way or another. Someone called it like your algorithm diet or your YouTube diet. If your YouTube diet's good, I think it can have quite a positive. It can go either way, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do need to be discerning with that kind of stuff because there's a lot of slickly produced shows that are not, the information's not quite as good. And there's some guy in his basement that has great information that's maybe the lighting isn't as good or his audio's not great or something, but he's very knowledgeable about what he's teaching. But yeah, you really got to be discerning.
Definitely. Cool. Jake, listen, I've enjoyed chatting, mate. It flowed really nicely. We touched on some stuff. Nice Friday chat. I think we've about nailed it.
Yeah, this has been great, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, likewise, mate. But yeah, no, thanks again, mate. It's been really nice. And yeah, cheers, Jake.
Thanks for having me.